In the 2000s, it felt almost impossible to escape Drake. Whether it was the radio, clubs, playlists, or Instagram captions, his voice was everywhere. But dominance like that doesn't just happen by accident, and it doesn't last forever without consequences. Now, after more than a decade at the top, a serious question is starting to form in the culture. Is Drake's legacy actually in danger, or are we just witnessing the natural backlash that comes when someone stays on top for too long? To understand this moment, you have to go back to the beginning of the run.
Do you feel like you are successful?
Yes, I do. I always want more. I'm, for some reason, ready to go back and start working on new music tonight, even though everyone around me needs
This came out last week.
Yeah.
Drake didn't just become successful, he redefined what mainstream rap could be. When he emerged with projects like Take Care and Nothing Was the Same, he blurred the line between rapping and singing in a way that made vulnerability commercially viable.
Yeah, what are you into? What are you listening to? What are you feeling?
I've been really inspired by some real just gutter hood music, just listening to Lil Reese Savage mixtape, listen to Lil Herb, Lil Bibby, Fergie, I'm proud of Ferg, ASAP Ferg.
Mm-hmm.
He made it acceptable for rappers to be emotional, introspective, even soft at times, without losing dominance. That shift changed the entire sound of the decade, and then came his record-breaking era. Views became a streaming monster. One Dance dominated globally. Playlist culture exploded, and Drake mastered it better than anyone. He understood something early. In the streaming era, consistency beats mystery. While other artists disappeared for years between albums, Drake stayed present. Features, surprise drops, loosies, collaborations. He built an ecosystem where he was always within reach. And the numbers reflected that. Billboard records, streaming milestones, first week debuts that felt automatic. For nearly 10 years, Drake wasn't just competing, he was operating in a tier of his own. Drake's influence in the 2000s went beyond charts. He shaped slang, he shaped aesthetics, he shaped how artists approach genre blending. When he embraced Caribbean rhythms, Afrobeats, UK drill, or trap, those sounds surged in American mainstream exposure. Critics debated whether it was cultural appreciation or opportunistic wave riding, but either way, his influence was undeniable. If Drake touched a sound, it expanded. He also mastered relatability in a way few superstars ever have. He didn't present himself as untouchable. He presented himself as emotional, petty, reflective, insecure, confident, sometimes all in the same album. That complexity made him feel human, and that humanity fueled connection. The first major cultural shift came during the escalating tension with Kendrick Lamar.
The news is so serious these days. What we could really use is a palate cleanser, like a fun pop culture story. And luckily, there's some big news this weekend.
Boy, has the rap world been buzzing over the weekend. The internet on fire. Are you Team Drake or Team Kendrick Lamar? The feud is red hot, with both stars dropping several diss tracks over the weekend. Both stars gaining tens of millions of streams in the process. The beef has been ongoing for several years, quite frankly, but it's reached a fever pitch right now.
Ooh, a rap battle. It's a great way to showcase an MC's skills. I gotta say, as a Michigan boy, I loved watching Eminem slice and dice his competitors. It's always a great time. In fact, I bet Drake is gonna tease Kendrick about selling more albums, and Kendrick is gonna make some playful jabs about Drake being a Toronto Raptors fan. So, let the ribbing begin.
In his diss tracks, Drake claims Kendrick abuses and cheats on his fiancée, while Kendrick accuses Drake of being a pedophile.
And that contest opened the door for broader criticism that had been quietly building. Hip-hop thrives on competition, but this wasn't a casual rivalry. This became surgical, strategic, personal. When diss records started circulating and the back and forth intensified, the conversation shifted from numbers to respect. For years, Drake had been commercially untouchable, but Kendrick represented something different. Lyricism-first credibility, calculated precision, artistic mystique. And when the feud reached its peak, the public narrative tilted. Social media dissected every bar, reaction channels exploded, and slowly, the question changed from who's bigger to who won. In rap, perception is everything. Even if Drake's streaming dominance remained intact, the cultural scoreboard felt different. For the first time in years, he didn't look invincible. He looked contested. Drake releases a lot of music. Albums, collaborative projects, deluxe editions, features, sometimes multiple appearances in the same quarter. On one hand, that work ethic is impressive. On the other, it has diluted the event factor. Earlier in his career, a Drake album felt like a moment. The culture paused. Now, for some fans, releases blend together. The anticipation cycle has shortened. There's an argument that he hasn't allowed absence to build hunger. And absence matters. Some of the most iconic artists in history understood the power of disappearing. Drake chose the opposite strategy, omnipresence. It worked for years, but after a decade, omnipresence can turn into fatigue. Every major artist faces it eventually. Drake has experimented, dance-heavy albums, house-inspired projects, melodic trap phases. But critics argue that the emotional themes and formula haven't fundamentally shifted. The flows evolve, the production changes, but the core persona sometimes feels preserved. And when you've already reached the mountaintop, preservation can look like stagnation. Complicating matters further are the off-music headlines. Allegations connected to streaming manipulation lawsuits introduce skepticism around the numbers, even if nothing definitive is proven. In the streaming era, data equals dominance. But when fans begin questioning the data itself, it chips at perception. Then the gambling headlines came. Massive public bets, viral losses, meme cycles portraying Drake as both ultra-wealthy and oddly reckless. For some fans, it's entertaining, another layer of celebrity mystique. For others, it reinforces the idea that the brand is expanding while the art feels secondary. And that brand expansion is significant. Fashion collaborations, liquor ventures, sports affiliations, tech partnerships. Drake has built an empire beyond music. From a business standpoint, it's brilliant, but hip-hop has always had a complicated relationship with commercial scale. The more corporate an artist appears, the more purists question authenticity. It becomes harder to separate the artist from the enterprise. Now, all of this converges on one critical moment, the upcoming album, reportedly titled Iceman. This project feels different, not because Drake needs a hit, he can generate one almost automatically, but because he needs a statement, a defining chapter that reframes the narrative post-Kendrick, post-oversaturation, post-meme era. The pressure isn't commercial, it's historical, because legacy isn't just about numbers, it's about narrative memory. When future generations talk about the 2000s and 10s, Drake will undeniably be central. But will he be remembered as the artist who dominated and evolved, or the artist who dominated and plateaued? There's also a broader cultural shift happening. The streaming landscape Drake mastered is now hyper-fragmented. TikTok virality can outpace album cycles. Younger artists move faster, drop shorter projects, and operate without traditional rollout strategies. Attention spans are shorter, loyalty cycles are quicker. Sustaining decade-long dominance in this environment may simply be unrealistic for anyone. So maybe this isn't decline, maybe it's recalibration. The public has a pattern. We build icons, then we grow tired of them, then we rediscover them years later with nostalgia. Backlash is often the tax on long-term success. When someone stays at the top too long, the culture subconsciously looks for disruption, and Drake has been the establishment for years now. The question isn't whether he can still make hits, it's whether he can shift perception again, whether he can deliver something that feels urgent rather than expected, whether he can silence critics not with numbers but with undeniable artistic weight. Because here's the reality, legacies aren't destroyed overnight. They erode slowly through narrative shifts, fatigue, and comparison. But they can also be reinforced with one undeniable era. Drake doesn't need to outsell everyone. He needs a moment that reminds people why he dominated in the first place. If Iceman delivers that, the legacy in danger conversation disappears overnight. If it doesn't, the doubts get louder. Either way, we're witnessing something rare. Not the rise of a superstar, but the preservation of one. And sometimes, staying legendary is harder than becoming legendary. So is Drake declining, or are we simply watching what happens when an artist stays on top long enough for the culture to crave something new?